Azure Cosmos DB SQL API supports querying JSON items using SQL. Let's take a look at a sample item and a few SQL queries. Imagine you have an object which has given name, last name, email, and phone properties. It also has a complex address property, which is a nested JSON object by itself. If we are saving this object in Azure Cosmos DB SQL API instance, we should be able to write SQL queries to find this object based on the given name. If you have worked with SQL, this syntax should be familiar to you. So I am basically looking for any item from the people's collection where the item's given name property is equal to John. Running this query in the Data Explorer will result in this object being selected. So what if I'm looking for all people based on their cities? That is also supported. As you can see, I can query nested properties as well as simple properties. So in the second query, I'm looking for all the items in the people's collection where the person's city equals Boston. And finally, I can select fields of my items into new JSON objects. So as you can see in the third query, I am selecting the item's ID and item's city, but I'm going to project them into a new JSON object with two properties, name and city. And I'm going to only select objects which have the nested property of city equals Boston. So if you are going to create a new project with Azure Cosmos DB and you are a developer with SQL background, it makes more sense for you to choose the SQL API, because this way you can use the familiar SQL syntax to work with your data. So one way of interacting with your data is to use Data Explorer with SQL queries. The other option is to use the Cosmos DB SDK. If you are coming from a SQL background, you should be familiar with the group by operator. This is a very useful operator which was not originally supported by Cosmos DB. Now this is changed. Azure Cosmos DB now supports group by operator for queries written in the SQL or core API, and this is an example of a group by operator. As you can see, we are grouping the results based on the last name property of our record. I am going to add a link to this Microsoft documentation in case you want to go ahead and read more. So Azure Cosmos DB provides SDKs for a few programming platforms, including .NET Standard. So if you are using .NET Platform, you can simply go ahead and install Microsoft.azure.cosmos NuGet package. After that, you can include Microsoft.azure.cosmos namespace in your code and start interacting with Azure Cosmos DB. Please note that this is the third version of this client library. There are older versions and they are not recommended to be used. We are going to work with this API in the modules demo.